The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus told his disciples a parable about the need to pray continually and never lose heart. There was a judge in a certain town, he said, who had neither fear of God nor respect for man. In the same town there was a widow who kept on coming to him and saying, I want justice for you against my enemy. For a long time he refused, but at last he said to himself, maybe I have neither fear of God nor respect for man, but since she keeps pestering me, I must give this widow her just rights. She will persist in coming and worry me to death. And the Lord said, you notice what the unjust judge has to say. Now when our God see justice done to his chosen, who cry to him day and night, even when he delays to help them, I promise you, he will see justice done to them and done speedily. But when the Son of Man comes, will he find any faith on earth? This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Jesus, at the end of this gospel, poses a very unsettling question. When the Son of Man comes, will he find any faith on earth? It's very challenging, because what's he talking about? Of course people believe. And Jesus is saying, well, perhaps not so much. He uses this image of an unjust judge. And for us, well, it's just a little story. But in the time of Jesus, everyone would know about the judges, the justice system. The place where Jesus grew up in Galilee would be very much a place dominated by the powers of Rome and by the rich. A widow would have absolutely no chance of getting justice. The only way to get justice, or what you call justice, was be powerful yourself and to be able to give a bribe. That was the system. So ordinary people, and especially widows who had nothing, had no chance in the world. And so Jesus is showing how this judge, even though he is corrupt, if the widow keeps after him, he will give. And Jesus says, well, the judge is not like God. He's the complete opposite from God. God is not somebody that we have to go begging to and hoping that he will help us. Jesus is teaching about a God who actually loves us. He takes care of us, who watches out for us. And so the challenge with regard to faith is to ask ourselves, do we actually believe in a God that goes through life with us, takes care of us, and protects us? And sometimes when we push that a little bit further, we may not really be believing in that kind of God. A lot of people believe in a God, okay, that's the way God is. He's looking out for me. He's protecting me. And as soon as something goes wrong, then there is no God. I mean, if he's supposed to be looking out for me, how can bad things happen to me? And so this faith goes out the window. And Jesus is asking us to have faith in a God in the midst of a world, as you know, that is very much broken and very unfair. In the midst of a world where good people get hurt and tragedies come. Jesus says, that's the world. If you believe in God, God is not going to change the world. God will work with you and in you to help you live in this broken world. That's faith. Okay? To believe that because I got faith, nothing bad's going to happen to me, we're going to get a really terrible awakening because bad things happen to us. But the faith that Jesus is talking about is the faith in a God that accompanies us through life and helps us live our lives and find joy in a broken world. and help us, even though we're not perfect people, to find happiness in life. That's the faith. But it's even more important is that we say, okay, that's being a Christian. But Jesus is talking about something that's not about just being a Christian. He's talking about something that's being human. See, to have God just doesn't accompany Christians or Jews or anybody like that. God accompanies through life every human being. That's God's gift. That's God's gift of love. And God doesn't accompany us by walking beside us. God accompanies us by dwelling within us. And faith is believing that God dwells in every single human being. And that's God's gift of creation. And so with this broken world, all of us are expected to walk through it. But you can't walk through it, this broken world, with our faults and failings, if we're not in touch with this power of God within us. Okay? We need to be in touch. That's faith, is being in touch. It's not believing that it's there, but it's actually believing or being in touch with the power of God within. Any person, wherever they're from, wherever they are in the world, whatever faith they proclaim, if they try to go through life without being in touch with this power within them, they will be beaten down. They will become discouraged. They will become angry and disillusioned, and they will feel very, very much alone. The whole of creation, we sometimes don't realize, is that every human being, when we were all given the gift of life, we were given the gift of this ability to live life. And faith is touching that ability. And so we have all kinds of faiths all over the world trying to touch this ability. And we have people who even don't believe in God, but they might believe in the human goodness, and they're trying to live out of that. And unless we live out of the human goodness, or the divine goodness actually within us, the life that we live, this world, will get the better of us. And so the challenge that Jesus is putting out to people, he's saying, listen, believe in the power of God that is within you. That's faith. Live out of the goodness that is within you. There is nothing that any of us can't forgive. There's a lot of things we won't forgive, but there's nothing any of us can't forgive. There's nothing any of us can't deal with. But there's a lot of things that we choose not to deal with. And faith is a choice to live out of the goodness within each one of us. It's amazing. And it's a gift to everybody. And Jesus, the uniqueness about our faith is that Jesus said, listen, this goodness within you is the presence of God. This goodness within you is a loving goodness. It's a powerful goodness. You should touch it and experience it. It will transform your life. And as you know, his life was a terrible life. But he was filled with this presence of God. One of the things that Jesus was trying to get people to do with believing in this presence of God is that once we believe in the presence of God within us, then every good thing that we do is building up the kingdom of God. Every act of kindness, every act of gentleness. And Jesus is saying, one day there will be the kingdom of God. And all of us now are participating in it, every one of us. And we participate every time we do something good, something kind, we're making the world a better place. It's not just about us. It's about the world. It's about all people. And every single one of us have a part to play, and an essential part to play. Because if you don't do your part, somebody else has to do it for you. Somebody else has to try to fill in for you. And we really can't fill in for anybody else. Because we can't do that. We'll only have enough energy, enough faith, perhaps, to do our own part. And so our parts that are not done, that has to be left to Christ. But it's a great tragedy, because when I don't do my part in making this world a better place, I do my part in making it a place that's harder to live in. And I do my part in making myself a very unhappy person. Like faith is not an option. You could call it anything, but belief is not an option. We need to believe in the goodness of ourselves. Otherwise, life is just too hard. And if I'm building up this kingdom, what Jesus talks about, the reign of God and the kingdom, it's a promise that someday in the future, way in the midst of time, and if we're moving at the progress that we're moving now, it's a long way away, someday all the hurt will be healed. All that's broken will be made whole. All the losses will be brought back. All the dead will have new life. That's His promise. And so we're part of something bigger than we think we are. And not one of us is insignificant. We all have our parts to play. And when we play the part by acting with love and gentleness out of the goodness within us, we make the kingdom a little bit more present in this world. And we sometimes, if you look at the news and say, my God, what a mess the world is in. What can we do? We can do nothing. We can do something. We can build the kingdom of God. And it takes a little bit of kindness at a time, a little bit of forgiveness, and to realize that we can do it. And we can live in this broken, sometimes a horrible world. We can live with dignity and love and gentleness. And as you know, the measure of the happiness of life is not what happens to us. It's not based on how fortunate we are or how lucky we are. What measures the quality of any of our lives is not the negatives that may happen or not happen. What measures the quality of our lives is how we respond to what happens to us. And it doesn't mean a row of beans, and it doesn't matter what happens to us if we respond from this goodness within us. That's what Jesus teaches. And he says, well, does anybody believe that? And Jesus says, well, he believed it. He believed it. His disciples believed it. They got excited by it. They weren't afraid of anything once the penny dropped. They were believing in Jesus and His teaching all along while Jesus was with them. And they were thinking that everything was going to be good. And they found out everything went wrong. And it was only after everything went wrong they said, hold it, I think we got it wrong. We're supposed to handle the brokenness. And we're supposed to handle it by touching the goodness within us, the presence of God. And then the church changed. It became alive. It became life-giving. So today we're just reminded about the need of faith. And I hope that when that question is asked, when the Son of Man comes, will He find any faith on earth? I say, He got to, because we're going to be, what a mess if He doesn't. We have to believe, not only for ourselves, but for one another. And there's not one of us who is not valuable. And so the invitation of the gospel today is to challenge us. Do we have faith? And I think the answer is yes. But we have to have faith in the power within us to do good, to forgive, to love, to make God present, and to build the kingdom.